Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Fish Bytes, the Miami Herald's Miami Marlins podcast. I'm Jordan McPherson. He's Andre Fernandez. Surprisingly, on the flip side, he's the one in the hotel right now in Fort Myers. I'm the one at my house. Dre, how are you?
Getting my Marriott points, my friend. Finally, I got out of the house and did something. I'm covering baseball, but of a different sort. I'm at the state baseball championships in Fort Myers, covering some thrilling high school baseball when it's not a weather delay out here.
Yeah, no, you got you got a few good games in there so far. A couple state champions and a couple more potential contenders.
Yeah, I mean, we're almost at draft time pretty soon. So for people that intensely follow that kind of thing, got a chance to see some pretty good prospects out here on some of our local teams. Like one of them that stood out, of course, is the Douglas High School team. That's stacked, won their second state championship in a row. Probably going to be national champions. With guys like Roman Anthony, Jake Clemente, Chris Arroyo, like a lot of Gator signees, but guys that may not end up in Gainesville, that may end up getting drafted and signing pro. But in a few weeks when the draft rolls around, you'll be hearing a few of those names, and for good reason.
Yep. And again, one other guy you're going to see, another Gary Tejeda, who again just UF here, so yep. UF got here, selfish, bias. Just get all that out of the way now.
Yeah, he plays on Tuesday, so yeah, we haven't been able to see him yet here. I've seen him before, but yeah, another guy with a lot of potential. Tall kid, lanky, big, that very downward off the mound kind of downward plane delivery, tough to square up on. So should be interesting, should be fun.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I've got the Marlins stuff. They just finished up a 3-game series with the Braves, went 1-2. Closed out their 9-game homestand and are going to get ready to do a 7-game 3-city road trip through Tampa, back against Atlanta, and then finish up with Colorado.
They're going to pass by and wave at the Panthers and say, "It's been fun, guys. We like going to your games. We'll see you guys next year." That's what they're going to do on Monday night.
Yep, that's going to be. And again, just as a note, this obviously publishes Tuesday, but we are recording Sunday night beforehand, right. Just with our schedule, when the Marlins having the off day Monday, and with me helping going up to Tampa on Monday to help cover Game 4 for the Panthers, which may or may not at the time of this recording, it may or may not be the end of the road for them, as with them down 0-3 at the time of this recording. But on the Marlins, we gotta feel like
you'll be at the Trop. You'll be at the Trop soon enough, and focusing on that. So.
Yep, they'll be at the Trop. Pablo Lopez goes Tuesday, to be announced with an undetermined win-loss record, and undetermined ERA goes Wednesday. But before that, with what we saw on Sunday, Sandy Alcantara looks like Sandy Alcantara again, and it's fun to be able to watch him when he pitches the way he does. He has his last 3 starts, and specifically on Sunday, I'm just going to jump straight into him. 4th career complete game, first complete game of the season, and just dominant from start to finish. Gave up 3 runs. All 3 were unearned. Struck out 7, only gave up 6 hits, 115 pitches to get his 27 outs. And his last 3 starts overall, going back to that last game against Arizona on the road, 7 innings, 1 earned run against Arizona, 8 innings, 1 earned run against the Nationals, and then 9 innings, 3 unearned runs against Atlanta on Sunday. That's 2 earned runs over 24 innings, a .75 ERA. And after Sandy looking shaky by Sandy Alcantara standards, 3.03 ERA through his first 5 starts, to see him finally lock it down and figure things out and get into his groove again, that's key, not just for him, but obviously for the Marlins as a whole. So they have him at the top, and obviously the 1-2 punch of what we've been seeing from Pablo Lopez this season.
Yeah, and I think it's the next step in the evolution of Sandy as a true number 1 in this league, right? I mean, you see what he's able to do. It looks like he's worked his way out of that rough patch he had for a little while there. And the economy, I love the way, by the way, if anyone hasn't read it yet by this time that you're hearing this, the way Jordan broke down the start too, textbook on how when you get a gem like that, just dissect it. But yeah, I think the way he was economical with his pitches, I mean, it did surprise me that because we know Donnie gives guys the hook when it gets dangerously close. And maybe he was one batter away from that on Sunday afternoon, but he did give him some pretty good rope. And that is part of it, because you see that now there's a trust factor there where he can push it a little more, to that 115 range, and they have that trust in him, and he's earned it. But I love the way he mixed everything, and not just overpowering, trying to blow guys away, but you saw a lot of weak contact, a lot of ground balls. He mixed a lot of his pitches well, and really impressive to see, not just on Sunday's the highlight, but to me, but the recent starts. He's put himself back in the conversation, as far as potential all-star candidacy. I mean, maybe this team, as usual, only gets one, but we were talking about, Pablo being that one potentially, maybe Jazz if he keeps having a good year on the position player side. But you can't discount the ace of the team now. I mean, he had fallen off a little bit in recent weeks, but now he's firmly back. 2.11 ERA for the year. He's the ace of the team. And again, if he can keep piling on a few more of these starts between now and June, I think he's making his case again. And that's important because, your ace, and, as a colleague of ours said, Joe was on Twitter talking about it, I saw on Sunday too. And he's right. Your ace has to be the guy who stops the bleeding. And again, the Marlins were bleeding against the Braves, and he comes in and he's the Band-Aid, and that's what those guys do. So it's another step in just the evolution of his career. It's good to see the way that he's continues to progress toward that next level of being that kind of stable, effective starter, not just on this team, but in general among the better pitchers in baseball right now.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, 2.11 ERA, that's, as of the time of this recording, 8th in Major League Baseball among qualified pitchers. Between him and Pablo Lopez, the Marlins are the only team in Major League Baseball with 2 of the top 10 pitchers in terms of ERA that are on the same team. No other team has more than 1. So when you're able to see, obviously, Sandy return to form and then Pablo do what he's been doing so far this year, 1.57 ERA through his first 8 starts, and see him start selling, obviously seeing what will happen as it continues, and as he starts to face teams multiple times throughout the season, see what adjustments he makes versus the adjustments they make. But to have that 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation, this team, even with how much they focused on improving the lineup, having the horses on the mound, that's still going to be what carries them and what the foundation of this team is. And to be able to have the 2 of them leading that pack is instrumental for them right now.
Yeah. And forgot to mention too, and in the time I did that, and the timing of it, like, again, going back to that, how he, an ace has to be the stopper. Pablo has been great, but he had his first big clunker of the season the other day. So good timing to have Sandy come back, and even a few days later, kind of have this kind of a game, because all of a sudden, if your 2 best guys, that can spiral fast. You know what I'm saying? Early in the season, as you know. So that was big on that level, on that part of it too.
Yeah, and with the pitch count, as you mentioned, with Sandy going 115, Marlins manager Don Mattingly postgame said 115 was about the maximum that they were going to let him go today on Sunday. Of course, depending on how the outing went. If he labored through 3 or 4 innings and was at 85 and 90, and you could tell that he had to really work through a few of the innings, he obviously would have gotten yanked earlier. But the fact that he was able to more or less cruise through that outing on Sunday, I mean, there were only 2 innings where he had more than 15 pitches. One of them was the 5th inning, he threw 25, but that also had the unearned run happened, where Ozzie Albies hits a deep ball to center field. Jesus Sanchez misplays it. The ball drops out of his glove. It's a triple. And then you had a couple extra base runners in there. And then other than that, it was a 16-pitch 6th inning. Everything else was basically anywhere from 7 to 11 pitches. He was able to get the quick outs. And again, that's one of the things that's great about Sandy is he may not always have the high strikeouts. He may not always be the 9, 10, 11, 12 strikeout guy, but he's able to get the weak contact, get the quick outs, and that allows him to stay on the mound longer. Whereas everyone looks at the strikeouts, you would rather, I know, at least on my end, I'm looking at how efficient they're being. If you're able to get the strikeout the side in 11 pitches, sure, that's great. But if you're needing 25 pitches to get the 3 strikeouts, sometimes that kind of defeats the purpose of being the high strikeout guy when you can, versus what you see from Sandy, who it's get ahead of the count early, throw that first strike, and then make them swing and make them have to get into the at-bat early to find ways to get out of the innings quicker.
Lord of the double play, right? First of his name.
Yeah. What can I say? I'm a double play guy, as he said to me at the All-Star game in 2019. The one and only quote I needed from him that day. I told him at that moment, I was like, Sandy, I know the interview stuff isn't really your thing. You gave me the one line. We'll just stop there. Enjoy the rest of the time there.
That's it. Not going to top that. Perfect.
No. No.
On the flip side, though, the situational hitting is just continues to be a problem. And I feel like we're going to be, we'll see. I mean, it's still a lot of season left, but, you know, it goes back to the conversation we had in the last pod about, you know, if certain guys in that lineup don't get going consistently, it's going to be a long year at the plate in general, with some exceptions and some bright spots. But overall, you know, again, this team, you know, 5 for 33 with runners in scoring position. I mean, you know, a couple of sack flies in there that were, you know, that you got to sort of factor in. But overall, I mean, a lot of wasted opportunities again. And that, again, leads to – that's going to lead to defeats more often than not and more close losses. I mean, on Sunday, at least it was a close – finally a one-run victory. But if you weigh the entire series dropping the 2 out of 3, that's one of the big glaring spots, again, where it kind of cost them.
You know, again, as you mentioned, the close games, they're 6-13 in one-run games now. But when you look at it, 19 of their 40 games have been decided by one run at this point. And if they had a couple more of those clutch hits, which, again, going into through their game played Sunday, 390 play appearances with runners in scoring position. It's 12th in baseball. But they're hitting just 226 with runners in scoring position. That's 22nd in the league. 671 OPS, 22nd in the league. 273 batting average on balls in play. Again, removing strikeouts, sack bunts, and home runs. 20th in the league. They only have 2 guys hitting above 300 with runners in scoring position. Jazz Chisholm Jr., which we've all sort of been talking about just how great he's been. 417, 10 for 24. Joey Wendell, 7 for 17, 412. No one else above 300. Those 2 are above 400. And then the next
guy common right now? They're both hurt.
Yep, they are both hurt. And that actually swings us into our next topic of essentially the musical chairs that we have in the infield going on right now. As we talk, Joey Wendell's been on the IL for about 10, 11 days now, right hamstring strain. He's about to go on to a rehab assignment. The thought process, at least in my head from what I've been gathering, is he'll do the rehab assignment most likely through the Rays series, and then potentially the earliest he'd rejoin them is, I would think, Friday to start the series against the Braves. It would just make the most sense. Give him 3 games, give him 3 chances to test out the hamstring, and then just hope that you give him enough time to make sure it's ready, because if you take him off the IL and then first run down the base paths and it pops again, then you're basically completely restarting the cycle again. So with the hamstrings, we know how tricky those are.
Better be sure. Yep.
Yeah. Again, it's better safe than sorry. He was doing base running drills on Friday. He's been taking BP every day. He looks ready, but again, you need to be safe with those. Jazz Chisholm Jr., 2 different injuries over 2 separate days. Saturday in the 8th inning, Ozzie Albies slid in the second trying to steal a base, and his spikes got Jazz in the knee. He played through that on Sunday, but then was replaced in the 3rd inning when he got hamstring tightness. Don Mattingly said it was 2 separate injuries. One had nothing to do with the other. And Jazz dealt with hamstrings a couple times last year and missed a couple weeks on one point, missed a week on another point. And just with how aggressive Jazz goes every single time, with him trying to go 120% every time he gets a ball in play, every time he's trying to do something, the hamstring is very delicate part for him injury-wise. And it's also part of the reason why Don Mattingly sort of tries to give him the off day every now and then. Try to give him, if he can, the off day before a day off in the schedule, so he gets 2 days off and only misses 1 game, so you're not losing the bat as much. And also, I
was just going to say, I feel like he's the Jimmy Butler of the Marlins, where he plays at that, you know, balls out, go breakneck pace, but which is great and exciting, and you want to see that. But once in a while, you hold your breath, right?
You start seeing the ramifications of it. And we saw it last year with, I think it was 3 or 4 different either IL stints or times where they just had to sit him for a week because he wasn't ready. They didn't want to risk anything.
Yep. So it's like you have to handle him, you know, handle in terms of you hold your breath and you hope it's not serious, but you're conscious of every once in a while you could deal with little things like that. But the reward is much, much greater, obviously, because of the way the impact that he can have. And real quick, going back to, again, he had the sick game on Wednesday where completely under the weather, and I mean, you could tell him even the post game, he was like bundled up and everything, and still, comes out and has a. They lost that game too, but great performance individually and coming through 3 different times in that game to even give them a chance to win it.
Yeah, we almost had the Jazz Chisholm flu game there.
Right, that's the Jordan-esque performance you were hoping for, but unfortunately they didn't finish it off.
Yeah, and now the finish diving into the infield. Jazz with the hamstring and knee, Joey Wendell with the hamstring, John Birdie still coming back after testing positive for COVID. He's finally been doing baseball activities. He likely is going to join Wendell on a rehab assignment. And then Miguel Rojas has been dealing with a calf issue since the end of the Arizona trip. He got taken out of that last game with dehydration. He got taken out of the game Saturday with what they formerly called calf tightness. And Rojas has been playing through it. He didn't play Sunday. They feel optimistic he'll be ready to go Tuesday. But when you look at that, that's 4 of your main guys. That leaves your only main non-first baseman infielder is Brian Anderson, and he's having to play some outfield with Jorge Soler dealing with back stiffness. So when you look at your options, if in that hypothetical of Wendell and Birdie not ready for Tampa and having to be cautious with Jazz and Miggy, you have Eric Gonzalez up, who's been bouncing between shortstop and third base, and as a defensive first guy who has an MLB track record, 6 years with Cleveland and Pittsburgh, he's held his own having to basically be that stopgap guy. And he's been able to he's filled in nicely defensively. He's had a couple good plays. 7th inning on Sunday, leadoff single, steal second, realizes the throw 2 second went wide and fell into shallow outfield and took third to get him in the position to score with Jacob Stallings up and help them get 2 runs that they ultimately needed in the 4-3 game. And then your other guy, you have Joe Dunan up, who they just called back up Sunday, which we saw what he did that first game in San Diego, and then he had to fill in for Jazz after the 3rd inning. And coincidentally enough, Joe Dunan's never played second base and had to go in there in a pinch once Jazz left the game. And held his own there, got on base twice with a single and a hit by pitch. But after those 2, you're really out of 40-man options. The only other guy you have left is Jose Devers, who we saw a little bit of last year, but is playing in Double-A right now after missing a lot of time to start the season with shoulder injury. So he went through minor league rehab, and you don't want to have to rush him up if you don't have to. You don't want to rush an injured minor leaguer up or got a minor leaguer returning from injury because of your big leaguers.
Yeah, I mean, it's being held together by Scotch tape right now, and so that's why you hope that maybe Wendell or somebody can get back soon. But I mean, well, Dunan, that's what we talked about, right? I mean, that game, what we talked about, it was going to earn him at least that spot on the pecking order where you feel like, okay, now we can give this kid another chance, and they have. And then when it comes to Devers, we talked about it at length last year. I thought they rushed him too fast. He looked overmatched. It wasn't it wasn't good for the kid to be up at that point. I don't think it did him well. And right now it'd probably be a little bit, maybe not as bad, but it would still be a little bit of a disservice if he's still building his way back at the minor league level to kind of do that again and just thrust him in there and have him face, maybe be a little overmatched again. I mean, what does that do for the kid's confidence? So it'd be good if he wasn't the one that has to come up in an emergency, but you understand the desperation a little bit. You hope that the fill-in guys right now can kind of hold their own at least for a few more days until maybe Wendell comes back or the injuries start to heal up, because you're in those delicate spots there where you don't. I wouldn't want to see them rush Devers back up right now if they don't have to. At least in that case. I mean, Dunan, it's a different situation where this is his opportunity, like to keep showing something, and I think that's good to see at this point in his career. But yeah, I'd hope that they can manage without having to go to the well a little bit too more, push a little more down the depth chart there.
Yeah, and then the struggle is if you tried to bring up one of your other guys, your AAA guys, 40-man is pretty tight at this point. Because again, remember, when Birdie and Richard Blyer come back, they're both not on the 40-man right now, technically while being on the COVID IL. So once the 2 of them come back, they're still already going to have to make another move. Because if I have my math correct, without those 2, they're at 39. So when Birdie and Blyer come back, that's 41. I mean, there are a couple of things they could do. There's obviously they could DFA one of the relievers. potentially Eric Gonzalez. I'm not sure if you'd want to do that. I mean, also, I think they may have to be at the point where if Eric Gonzalez isn't on the roster, I think he might be out of options. So that might have to be one avenue. Or
Right.
Paul Campbell, who we haven't really gotten an update on since he went on the IL early this year with an elbow injury, elbow or shoulder. They could slide him to the 60-day and free up a spot that way. But it also gets tough if you're trying to bring in a guy who's on the 40-man for 1 or 2 days and then have to DFA him right away once your regulars come back and
it's
just
not
play some of the depth.
And it's not completely imminent, but Blyer already started his rehab too. So eventually you're going to need to, plug him back into the bullpen there, and then you're going to have to, make some room there, obviously. So it's, mixing and matching working pieces there where, it's going to be interesting to see how they can tweak some of those spots according to needs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting next week or so. And then also just a note on that May 30th, at that point, MLB rosters have to be 13 pitchers, 13 position players. Mm-hmm. So there's a thing where they could bring Blyer back and then drop a position player if they didn't want to drop a bullpen guy and have their extra reliever and only the 3-man bench. But by the end of the month, you have to do the 4-man bench.
Yeah,
so
a week left.
The roster construction is going to be a lot more rigid starting next week, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. Because Mattingly, up until bringing Dunand up as the insurance policy, he's been riding the 3-man bench and going with the extra arm in the bullpen to make sure that they had the arms when needed. And
they hit
once
that day and
it makes it interesting.
Right. They hit that day in Colorado, right? On Monday?
Yes, Monday. Yeah, so start of the Rocky series.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they can make the pieces fit there. But a lot of even that deadline also clustering things a little bit where you're gonna have to do it. I mean, and injuries aren't limited to the majors. I mean, that's the other part we wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Meyer.
Yep. Max Meyer, as everyone saw, his last 2 starts have been, to put it lightly, rough. 8 1/3 innings, 14 hits, 4 home runs, 14 earned runs, 5 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Turns out that he has been playing through injury. He was put on the minor league IL on, I believe it was Thursday, with what the team called ulnar nerve irritation. The ulnar nerve is in it's basically related to the UCL. It's with the elbow. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously something that needs to be severely monitored. He's supposed to be, the team's supposed to reevaluate where he stands early this coming week. So hopefully we'll have a more formal update soon, but that's a tough blow for the Marlins, especially considering, again, we've talked about starting pitching depth. We talked about what it's going to take for Max Meyer after his strong start in AAA, and now to see this setback on top of what we've seen from setbacks with their other starting pitchers in the minors. Obviously, Edward Cabrera getting the late start, Braxton Garrett and Jordan Holloway are on the minor league IL. It's just those pieces that you would hope that could be fillers if you have the injury, sort of like what they have right now with Jesus Luzardo. Those options have sort of quickly become thin, and Max Meyer being the latest to join that group is obviously not ideal.
I mean, again, but that's why, for all I get the excitement, no doubt about it, with Max Meyer, but this is why maybe it's not as sexy, but this is why you have the Cody Poteets of the world, because.
And Cody Poteet did a pretty damn good job too.
Yeah, because everybody setting up Meyer immediately. No, I mean, you have to be sure. I mean, and this is without the injury. You have to be sure that it's the right time, that he's ready, even, just the way he's pitching. And it didn't seem like the right time. And then he had the glaring, terrible game, but you know why now? There was a reason for it. So it wouldn't have been the right time. So it's a delicate process that they went through with Cabrera, and now they're going through it with Meyer. So at some point, both of those guys will be effective options for this team, but now is not that time, and they're going to have to make it work. Luckily, that's where a guy like Poteet gives you the organizational depth that you need to give you those spot starts here and there and be effective. And if you look at the rotation right now, I mean, Eliezer struggled. He's starting to pitch slightly better. Like the last start he had wasn't. The last couple starts haven't been. His issue is just like we talked a little bit about this before we hit the record button. But his issue isn't so much like he can give you some effective innings. It's the third turn. It's past the fifth inning, the endurance level. Ideally, he's the long reliever to me. I mean, like once another option presents itself in that rotation, he's the long reliever guy. And that's why right now, he's on the back end. You stretch as much as you can. You hope he kind of, pushes you along in that spot. But eventually, that's the ideal thing. So, I mean,
once another option comes and Jesus Luzardo comes back, because that other option right
true.
now is still in the
Correct. Right.
Right.
I mean, not counting when they're at full strength. I mean, like in the grand scheme, putting injuries aside, when you're looking at your ideal five, once say it's Cabrera or Meyer, whoever the two, let's say, once the time is right, and the time could be coming up for Edward. We're not saying anything for sure yet, but it's getting closer.
Edward Cabrera's last outing on, I believe it was Friday. Yeah, Friday. 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 11 strikeouts against 1 walk, and he threw 102 pitches. The pitch count for me was important to see how much he's actually built up. And again, 11 Ks in AAA. And again, there's nothing definitive yet, but with a Friday start for him, that would put him at his regular rest leading into a Wednesday when the Marlins have their starter as TBA. It's not saying it's going to be him. It very well could be a Cody Poteet round 2, which again, Cody Poteet has earned the ability to have another outing if given the chance. Through 5 strong innings in his outing against the Nationals, he could easily be back out there against Tampa, and then you piece together the final 3 to 4 innings after the fact. But Edward Cabrera is starting to show that if he's not ready, he's at least closing the gap, which is good to see, especially after making his debut last year, leaving an impression, but also leaving a desire to see what's next, sort of like what we have with Trevor Rogers in 2020. Comes up, gets through some rough outings, and then flipped the switch in 2021. Marlins were hoping they'd be able to get that out of Edward Cabrera in 2022, and then he had the shoulder issue right near the end of spring training that set him back a good month to start everything up. But if he can get back and be able to get up there, it gives the Marlins another option.
Definitely. I mean, and a fun opener for you at Truist if he did make his 2022 debut out there, especially against Atlanta. That'd be interesting to see. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's time. I mean, I think it's long, unfortunately, all those setbacks that he's had, it's good to see that he's finally progressed to the point, knock on wood for the next few days, nothing happens between now and then. But if they decide, whether it's Friday or whether it's a little bit further down the line, if they decide finally it's time for him, that's good, because that could be, again, you hope that maybe he's that option that we just talked about. Maybe he's that guy, man. When you want to bring him up, you hope it's not just one or two starts. You hope that he can finally get to that point in his career where maybe he's ready for a little more extended action in the majors.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that's going to do it for us on this week's episode of Fish Bytes, mostly because I have a flight in about 10 hours and still have some stuff I need to get done before we do everything.
He has to go to a hockey funeral, people.
Yeah,
leave the man alone. He's gonna get you your Marlins notebook. He's gonna get you your minor league report on Monday that you always like to read. But he's got to go to a hockey dismissal on Monday night, where after the Lightning take care of the Panthers.
Yep, and if they somehow win it, consider this your reverse jinx for it, and they come alive to be able to go to FLA Live Arena at least one more time. And like Andre said, minor league report is going to be online Monday. An off day story, taking a deep dive into some numbers, is going to be online Monday. And then 2 games in Tampa, day off before Atlanta, and then a weekend with the Braves for the second weekend in a row. So
this isn't the Panthers show, but real quick, they had a great year. Credit to them for being the number 1 seed overall, but they've run into the hockey version of the Golden State Warriors right now. The Lightning are sick. They're making a damn good chance at a three-peat, which is extremely rare in hockey. They ran into a buzzsaw. So I'd be shocked if they're still playing by the time people hear this.
Yeah, and either way, again, Tampa Bay Lightning, they weren't back-to-back Stanley Cup champions they were back-to-back Stanley Cup champions.
They could already have a three-peat. Have a three-peat. I know we're diverging in the hockey here, which people didn't come to hear that, but they could have a three-peat right now going for 4. That's how good they are. But Jordan will be at the Trop covering Marlins Rays, the 2-gamer squeezed in between 2 off days.
Yeah, no, and those who follow my Twitter account, they see the hockey tweets as well, so they know this is coming from me.
Well, you're the Swiss Army knife, man. I mean, between that and then, later you're doing high schools, on the side here and there, a lot of behind the scenes stuff now in the spring, but come fall, you'll probably be at a football game doing Friday night lights kind of thing. And you're all over the place.
Yep. And with that, that's going to do it this week. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone, and we'll be back again next week.